Hello and welcome to another Duke and Howie podcast. We're glad to have you. Um, George, right off the bat, I got a story for you.
All right. What is it?
Um, have you ever heard of flat Earth theory? Like flat Earth people who believe in like flat Earth,
Yeah, I'm familiar with the meme, actually. I've just seen
right?
memes. I've never met anybody that actually believed in flat earth.
You haven't run into anybody yet?
Never. I have never I've met the amethyst crystal people. I've met the oils people, like the doTERRA people, but
They're the same.
I've never met a flat earther ever.
Okay.
Never had the privilege.
Okay. Well, dude, I mean, it's pretty easy to run into crystal people now.
Yeah. I could throw a
They're
crystal and hit like 5.
Yeah, pretty much everybody believes that crystals have healing energy. Anyway, dude, I got the best story for you, man.
All right.
I ran into a flat earther.
Okay.
Okay, and it shook me. It shook me because I didn't realize that these people existed uh, outside of the internet.
You're right.
You know, we
Yeah.
forget that we forget that these people walk around grocery stores. They have to eat to survive like we do.
And some of them have like children
Yeah, some of them have
and
kids.
jobs. How is this happening?
I couldn't imagine. It is totally. What was the time period when they thought the Earth was flat? It wasn't the Renaissance. It was the medieval times, right? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like a flat Earth person is just a guy that's at the medieval times, and he's serving like the giant chicken dinners while you're gonna watch the fake fight in the arena, and he has to like go into character, and he has to say like, and the Earth is flat, blah blah blah.
But he like
Burn the
walks
witch
out.
if it weighs more than a duck.
He walks out of the
What?
fair and he just doesn't stop. It's the
Yeah,
same.
it's like it doesn't. Yeah, it's just like so. Yeah, but he walks out of the place. He doesn't. He never breaks character.
Okay.
So, anyways, I met one of these guys. But the way that I met him is probably the funniest part of the whole thing, dude. We have a horrible driveway, right?
Yeah.
So, like it's really long and windy in the woods. It's like it's like an eighth of a mile long, maybe. I've told you about my driveway a million times, and
Yeah, you live like in the woods, right? In a cabin. Like you have
yeah,
a massive log. I mean, look at the wood behind you.
yeah, it's pretty much what my house looks like. The whole
Yeah.
thing looks like this. Anyways, um, and so people like delivery truck drivers, like mail truck drivers, sometimes have a hard time navigating them. And I've seen pretty much everything. I've seen people like try to. There's like this big hill too. It's the worst part. Right when you're coming up to the house, there's this big hill, and if it's like a little rainy outside or whatever, the mud on the side of the hill, like on the side of the road, is really slippery. And if the truck driver has to like maneuver into the grass a little bit, man, it's just gonna slide. It's been horrible things. I've
Yeah.
seen I've seen trucks almost go into our river like multiple times. It
These poor
hasn't
guys,
happened
dude.
yet,
They're
thank
just
God.
like delivering you know, Amazon packages and getting stuck in your driveway for days.
Yeah,
Do you
we
feed
order
them?
we we order so much Amazon, dude. It's not even funny.
Do you
Especially
have
me
like
for my
a little guest house that they can stay at while you just figure out how to? You have like a pile of trucks.
oh
You
hell
know,
heck no, dude. Just let them sleep in the garage on the floor.
they're just like
Like,
7
listen, you gotta learn how to drive,
FedEx
bud.
drivers.
We get out of here just fine. You can sleep on the floor, but yeah. So the driveway sucks pretty much, especially on any day that's just not a perfectly sunny, dry day out. And and then plus all of our cars are in the driveway a lot of the time. Like other than during the middle of the day and work days, on the weekends it's bad. Anyways, so this dude is driving up, and he delivers a package, and I'm working in the shop, and I like to open my door to see when somebody shows up because I order a lot of things for my business. And I see him deliver the package, and I could tell it wasn't something I ordered, so I just like shut the door, and then I'm working away, and I hear this dude. I hear the loudest, like most passionate F word being shouted from what sounded like a mile away through like a megaphone. And I was like, oh, and I could hear it like over this what I was doing in the shop. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go check it out. And
someone needs my help.
Yeah, and I go
hold on,
outside,
citizen.
And I go outside, and I look down the driveway, and he had like reversed all the way down the driveway past the bridge, and then he tried to turn around over what was used to be an old bonfire pit with big stones that were laid in a circle, big ones like boulders. And he had gone over the old bonfire pit, backed over it, which I don't know how you didn't see that, backed over it, and then while he was backing over it, a chunk, like a part sticking out of the bottom of the car, picked up a rock and pivoted the whole entire truck up off of the ground.
Okay.
The back wheels. It pivoted the back wheels off the ground.
So it's like, is it like teetering or?
It was teetering. It was teetering.
Like a whole like delivery truck.
The whole delivery
he backed
truck.
it up on a rock, and it was
teetering. Yeah, it was teetering, but it was like just touching. But it was touching enough for the wheels just to go and like not catch anything.
Right. Did he know?
Right. And oh, dude, yeah, he got out, and that's why he yelled.
Oh.
He was freaking out, right?
He's like on his knees, like.
This was like a day before Christmas.
Oh no! Is he still in your garage?
It was a couple days before Christmas. Yeah, he's still in my garage. I asked him if I could tell this story. He said, "Yeah."
And so you go over there.
Yeah, so I go over there, and I'm like, all right, man, let's try to figure this out. And I figured, let's just try to put stuff under the tires so that they catch something and get lodged off this rock that you somehow lodged the entire truck on. I don't even know how he did it to this day.
I can't believe it.
And I tried to explain it to him, like what had happened to the truck, because it was very clear to me that the truck was sitting on a boulder.
Right.
And I could tell that he didn't understand that.
Okay.
And he didn't get it. Like I was like, look, you see the rock under there? And I think he was looking at other rocks or something. I don't know. He just didn't. So he kept doing things that were not related to helping the situation at all.
Okay.
He kept doing things in a way that I knew he didn't understand what the problem was, right?
Right.
And he finally got it, and then we were on the same page or whatever. And we tried everything, man. I got towels and rocks and like plywood and everything. And we tried to dig underneath of the boulder that was keep holding the truck up, and like we did everything, man. It was really unsafe too.
Yeah.
I was doing some really unsafe things to try to help this guy.
But prying a gigantic delivery truck off a rock. I mean,
yeah.
that whole scenario sounds to me like pretty unsafe.
It's inherently dangerous, and I suggest you just let the professionals do it, which, with their big tow trucks and stuff, which has ended up what had to happen, right?
Right.
So he calls his boss. He had to use my phone to call his boss. I don't know, because he couldn't use his phone. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I gave him my phone, and he called his boss, and his boss texted me and said, I'll send somebody soon. And so it was not specific at all. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
It was really cold out. And so I figured I'd just kind of hang out there with him for a while or whatever. So I sat down on the bumper of the truck that was teetering. Oh, I forgot, dude. I also did the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life.
What is that?
I stood on the back of this mail truck, right?
Okay.
And I just jumped up and down as hard and as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
I feel it. And the car, it was teetering, but it would dig into the dirt.
Yeah.
Just like create a hole. and it didn't actually like go anywhere.
Oh
But
no.
dude, if he actually took off, man, I
You're
would be
dead.
like,
You
oh,
would have been gone.
it would have been crazy. Anyway, so I sit down on the bumper of this truck, and I'm like, I look at him, I'm like, so tell me what's your story, man? And because I figured, we got some time, I wanted to hear what the story was. He was like, oh man, I'm into all kinds of stuff. And he started talking about these health things that he's really into. He started talking about okra and how okra is good for all different kinds of things. And I don't even know what okra is, to be honest with you. I know it's a vegetable.
Yeah.
I heard it in like a riff raff rap song one time, but
Okay.
I have no idea. What is okra, George? Do you know what
Okra.
okra is?
It's probably the. It looks like a bean. Like it looks like a long bean that you cut up and you dice it, and
Okay.
then normally you would deep fry it. Like I've met a few people that kind of eat it raw, not raw, sorry, but like sautéed in oil. But normally you'd butter it or batter it up and you deep fry it and you'd have deep fried okra. I've had pickled okra. That's pretty good.
You've
So
had pickled okra.
yeah, I mean it's just a weird bean thing, man. I can't really describe it. It's kind of like it's just a bean. It's a freaking bean, dude.
I've never had it before, and I feel like I've had a lot of foods, man.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything special about it. It's just it's weird.
Well, it seems exotic to me.
Yes.
Like when he was telling me about okra, I was like, is this like an Amazon harvest plant that has magical properties? But I think I Googled it, and I Googled it, and all I saw were pictures of it like coming out of some goop in a can. Like it didn't look
Yeah.
as exotic as near I was. It was very disenchanting to find out what
What okra really
okra.
was. Okay, so he told you about
Yes.
okra and the healing properties of okra.
Yeah. So the healing properties of okra. And at this point, I was starting to feel a little weird already.
Okay.
And you know,
Like your spirit was
and
preparing for what was about to happen. Like it was
something was off.
stirring.
Something
Okay.
was off. You know,
Yeah.
and we're conversating, and he starts he starts talking about he I said I forget I said something, and he's like he's like, do you think the Earth is a ball, or do you think it's flat?
Okay.
And I looked at him, and at that moment I knew. I was like, this is it. I feel I think I met one. I
Yeah.
think he's one. And
You
I
like
said,
you transcended into like a new interdimensional plane where the internet, the tubes of internet meet like reality.
yeah, it
And
was like a Bill Nye the Science Guy like intro. You know what I mean?
or
You ever
like
seen Bill Nye the Science Guy?
oh yeah, where Bill and it's like
Yeah, it was like a
I don't know. That
it's like a
was
Rick and Morty like transition.
right.
I shapeshift. And anyways, dude, I looked at him dead in the eyes, and I said, I think that the Earth is round like a ball. And he said, and,
Were you prepared to
and he,
defend this idea, Noah? This notion?
dude,
Were you ready to defend the Earth being round like a ball?
dude, I think that anybody is equipped to defend the Earth being round like a ball if you have a third grade science education.
Right.
And that is not a diss to anybody out there who might believe or might even want to feel comfortable considering that the Earth is flat. But it's not, and it's not hard to figure that out. And there are simple mechanisms that you can use. But you know what? I'm gonna try to be open to maybe to
But how
open to evidence.
how are the people? You don't know if the Earth was round. How are people not falling off the bottom of it?
Well, we're not on the bottom of it.
Yeah, sometimes we are.
No, we're on the top of it, dude.
All the time. If it's round,
We're on the top of it.
you sound like a flat earther, Noah.
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying. All right, dude. Let me get back to
All
it
right,
real
all
quick.
right, all right.
I want to bring up a couple of the points that he made,
Okay.
okay? Because I this is something that blew me away. This is the juice right here, okay? He said, "Oh boy, do I have a treat for you."
You know, when anybody says that, you're about to experience a treat, a real treat, like
And
a.
well, I stopped him and I said, "Dude," I said, "Are you a flat earther? Like, do you believe the earth is flat?" He's like, "Hell yeah, I do." And he like, with every ounce of confidence that was in his being.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
And I said, "All right, let me hear it." And the first thing he asked me was, he said, "Look at all these trees that are around you." He's like, "Look at look at all these trees." He said, "How are those branches staying on? Gravity, if gravity is real." He said, "Look at the grass. How does the grass stick up? How is the grass staying up? How's the grass pointing up?" He's like, "You ever think about that? Huh?
Have you ever?
George, you
Did
ever
you?
think about that? You
No,
ever think about,
I actually never have looked at a tree and thought,
man,
how's the branches staying up
why
in
is
the
the
air like
gravity
that?
just destroying everything?
I know. Why isn't trees flat? You know, that makes
What? And
sense.
this is what I told him. I asked him. I said, "Is it all right? Are you open to debate? Like, can I rebuttal to your claims? Because
Yeah,
technically he was asking me, you
right.
know."
Have you ever heard about
So I
this?
was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you think about all these things?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll tell you what I think about them." I told him. I said, "Well, things that can't withstand our gravitational pull don't exist." And he was like, "Okay, all right, okay." Well, he said, his next point was, "Well, why is it that if I went up," he's like, "if we were spinning on a circle
Okay.
and I went up like 100 feet, or, or, or if I went up, however many distant and I dropped a rock, why would that rock fall in the same place, or would it fall in a different place because the earth is moving?" And I was like, "Well," and here, so I got to say this though. I got to have a disclaimer. I don't actually know a lot about physics and science and things like that, right?
Right.
But my mind, when I heard that, was like, what about like when a fly gets in your car? You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you get a fly in your car and he's buzzing around or whatever, it's like there's an atmosphere in your car and it carries the fly with you. And
Right.
as soon as he goes out the window, he's like, poof, gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, so that's what I told him. I was like, well, what about when a fly gets in your car and you're driving at 60 miles an hour? The fly doesn't just like hit the wall when you're going 60. There's
Right.
like atmosphere pressure. And I said, and so I think that it might have, it might be like the same thing. I don't know. I don't want to say I know for sure because I don't. That's what I told him, right? So already we're off to a bad start because I'm starting to realize that I don't know everything about science and
But
physics.
you've been on a plane, man. You've seen you've seen
Dude,
because flying to Kenya, man, I've seen the Earth, the curvature of the Earth.
that's just because there's so much moisture in the air that it creates it creates
Oh, it's
a
distortion. It's a
it's a
distortion.
distortion from the moisture. Like when you look through a raindrop, you look through a drop of water, it distorts what's on the other side and makes it look round.
Oh,
That's why we think that.
wow,
Yeah.
dude. I've been
You've been
living a
living a
lie.
lie.
I've
Yeah.
been living a lie. When I looked out the plane window every time that I've been to Africa, I've thought, man, that's one round Earth.
Right. Oh,
I
look at that curvature.
Yeah, look at that roundness. You could see the Earth bending. That's cool.
It's moisture, bud. It's moisture.
Dang, dude, I
All
didn't
right,
even know.
here's another point, okay? He said this. He said there was a study done by this guy. He made a YouTube video, and we should probably find that YouTube video if it exists and put it in the
Yeah,
description.
the study.
Okay. Yes, the study, but it was done by a dude, and he had like a scope, right?
Okay.
It was a really powerful one.
Yeah.
You could see very long distances, and he was in New Jersey, right?
Right.
And he positioned this scope to look a certain direction, and he was able to find the Statue of Liberty in New York. Yeah,
Whoa, dude,
and
that
he said
destroys everything.
he said if the Earth was round, wouldn't there be like a hill on the way, or would
But
you be
but what
able to?
about the moisture? Did it see through the moisture that curves the earth?
I don't know. I don't know. It didn't see through the moisture, from New Jersey to New York is such a far distance.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be? It's just ridiculous. I told him I said they're not that far away, man.
Yeah.
It's like that's not that far away. It's like try to look at something that's. I was like, do you know how big the planet is?
Right.
It's huge,
Massive.
man. That span of distance, there is probably no curve. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's subtle. Like the answer,
It's
and
incredibly subtle.
correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but like I am pretty sure that if you throw a rock in the air, it's not going to land in the same spot for a number of reasons. Resistance, wind, velocity. The Earth will spin ever so slightly. It'll never land in the same spot. I mean, but the branches thing, dude, that stumps me.
Yeah, the
I'm
branches are
I'm
hardcore.
stumped.
Well, yeah, and like he's like, why? And he said, why is it that you're standing on the ground right now? Like, what is it that's keeping you on the ground? And I was like, gravity.
He's whipping out the
And he
big
was like,
guns.
no. He's like, no, it's mass.
Okay.
I was like, I was like, well, I was like, don't you? I was like, but it doesn't matter how much mass you have if there's no gravity. It doesn't matter at all unless you have enough mass to create an orbit, which would be critical mass,
Yeah.
would be a planet-sized amount of mass.
It's quite a bit.
You can create your own gravity when you have enough mass.
Well,
But
that's why I think that there's flat Earth and there's disk Earth, and I think disk Earth explains that.
dude, and oh yeah, because I know that there's one flat Earth theory where they believe that we're just constantly shooting up through space,
Right. Yeah,
and
we're
that's
going
what's
up.
holding us down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going. Could you imagine believing that? Waking
Dude,
up
it
in the
reminds
morning
me of
believing that.
Dragon Ball Z, when they're on the tournament thing and like it just shoots up real quick. You know what I'm talking about? They're in the I forget what it's called. But they're in like this tournament
Oh,
where all the champions are going and fighting.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And there's one part
That's the
where
old
it like shoots up and they're like stuck
dude.
to the bottom of it. Ah!
The shocking thing is, dude, is that a lot of people believe this. Like, there is a big number of people that believe that the Earth is flat.
Here's my thing,
And
Noah. This is something that I kind of want to talk about. Are you done? Because it might derail us a little bit from the story. I like this story. How does story end?
oh, dude, well, it ends with me just trying to like explain to him how gravity works, and
What?
explain to him that things that exist in this in on this planet are only alive because they can exist. That if there's a
Yeah.
planet out there where there's hardly any gravity, and there was like not the same atmosphere that we had, but like a lighter one, like feather people would exist or whatever, and
Right.
they would be. But if they came here, it would kill them instantly.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just totally,
Feather people.
you know. But here, one last thing,
Yeah.
because this is when it got even crazier. Okay,
Shit.
because it was nighttime at this point, right? It's
Right.
dark. We're waiting for this truck, and it had been like an hour and a half. I've been sitting here talking to this guy about flat Earth, and he was telling me all this stuff. I'm not even going to be able to remember half of it. And he points up at the moon, and he says, How far away do you think that is?
What was your
Pointing at
answer?
the moon.
Well, how far away is the moon?
I have no idea, but I was like thousands of miles away because that's
Yeah,
what I
like
think.
it's like
Like,
3,600 miles or something. Weird.
yeah, so thousands of miles away. And he said, wrong. He's like, that thing's only about 60 miles away. It's a projection.
It's a projection.
It's a projection, dude.
Oh man. Oh, I'm gonna
So
look
I
up.
asked him.
I'm gonna look up how far away the moon is.
So I
Okay.
asked him, I said, what would happen? I said, what would happen if we got to the edge of the flat earth? Do you fall off or how does it work? Is there like a big waterfall that with a fountain pump that collects all the ocean water and pumps it back up, like at your grandma's sunroom? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are we in grandma's sunroom? Is that what's happening?
Dude, we were so off on the distance of the moon.
How far is it?
238,000 miles. I'm like, yeah, 3,600 miles.
George,
Here to Africa.
George, that's thousands of miles though, man.
Dude,
Come on,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
I know.
All right, hundreds of thousands of miles away, right? No,
Yeah.
but George, it's 60 miles away and it's a projection.
Okay.
I'm just curious as to who was projecting that moon, thousands of years ago when there's pictures of the moon
Right.
hieroglyphics. You know what? People probably just went and painted those on caves recently
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
right?
It's a conspiracy,
Right.
dude, because the thing is, and this is what's going to bring me to my next part, because that's absolutely insane, is, okay, so, the moon, okay, the earth is round, or the earth is flat. Does that change anything? Like, does that change the fact that he still drove a truck to your house and it got stuck on a rock?
No, George, but elaborate on what you're getting at here.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that, like, I'm just saying, why do people go down that crazy path of that craziness when it doesn't change anything in your life? Like, if you were told that the earth is round and there's evidence of it, there's so much proof of it, and there's like this gigantic conspiracy, I guess, to cover it up, why would you like dedicate so much of your existence to trying to prove that it's flat? Like, what would that change in your life?
I don't know, man. That argument could be made for a lot of things that we do though that don't necessarily make sense.
That's true. But I was just like thinking, like, what if he showed you substantial evidence that the earth was flat? And to the point to where you believed him, like, would your life change forever?
I mean, kind of.
What would change?
You would look at the earth differently.
How often do you look at the earth? No.
I don't know, man. Oh, that was another point he made, is it flying in planes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Oh my gosh, he's convinced that pilots just fly around in circles to make it seem like it's a long time,
Dude, it's a
but it's
huge.
really just
Everybody's
everything's
in
like
on it.
everything's super close.
We need to go. We know. We know. We have a friend whose dad's a pilot at Delta, and we need to contact him and confirm this.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get murdered after this podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah. By the way, I live in California on an island called Catalina. I regularly eat seagulls that are fed to me
Well, I'm
by sea
screwed.
lions.
Because you pretty much told him where I live.
Did
and
I?
exactly what my house looks like and everything.
I didn't say where
The
you live.
long- No, I know, I'm just messing with you.
Oh, I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Now
The log cabin house.
we're gonna have
with
to
the long
delete our
driveway.
channel. We're gonna have to move to a bunker, a doomsday bunker, to hide from the flat
Right,
earthers.
because-
They're coming after
Because
us.
we're in on it, man. We're in on it.
I think if we can get in a
What do you-
plane and fly in a circle for a while, I think they won't understand. They don't know where we are. They'll lose our trail.
Dude, do you think that the government is raising people in like facilities to like as like as an experiment? They like raise these people.
You
to
mean
believe,
like,
like the Truman Story or like the
Okay.
Truman Show? You ever seen that?
yeah, dude, with what's that guy's name? He's in The Mask. Ace Ventura.
Oh yeah, yeah, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So that show's great. Do I think or that movie? Almost like 11 in Stranger Things.
yeah, dude. Well, no, not like superpowers. They're just like raising this dude to think that oh, I don't know, that if he,
Like
I don't know,
like they set
that
up
he has.
like society is against or working like to convince that person that something exists. Like
Yeah, like he
everybody's faking
believes that
it.
he's like he believes he's the only person. Oh man, they made so many. Now that I'm talking about it,
Yeah, they
I,
made a
I
lot of
realized,
movies
have
about
you
this
seen any
stuff.
movies? The Village? Have you seen The Village?
Yeah, dude, The Village was hardcore.
Yeah, The Village is
I
hardcore.
saw it when I was a kid. And I'm like, I didn't understand it, but I was laying in bed a couple of years ago, and I was thinking about it for some reason, and I was like, man, dude, they lived in. I thought they were Puritans this whole time, but they just lived in some random place in modern society. That's crazy. That's a crazy movie. It took me like 10 years
Yeah.
to figure it out, but
Do you think there's anything going on like that, man? Like in real life, for real, for
no.
real, for real?
I kind of think this.
No.
No, I don't think so. I think that you know, and this is not saying that we're doing the right or wrong thing, but I think a lot of the protected tribes, like Sentinel Islands tribe, the Sentinelese people that killed that missionary.
Oh yeah, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing to a degree, you know.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of,
But
but we're just respecting their wishes, I guess, which is to not go on that island
are there any more people groups like that? Apparently, there's only like 23 of those people left.
that we know of. That we know of. There's
No, no,
there.
I mean like on that island, on
Oh
that
yeah,
island.
there's not a lot of people there because of I mean a lot of things. They believe disease, of course, from locals that travel there. And also disfigurement, like malformed bodies from incest because the genetic pool is so small.
Wow.
Yeah. And heart defects and stuff is pretty common in ancestral families. Um I think that there do you think that there are so I was watching okay. Let's do you think that there are things okay, there are big things that the government knows about that we don't. Like do you think when the president gets elected, he sits in a room with a bunch of people that have folders of stuff and they're like, "Okay, well now that you're president, there are things that you need to know." And they have folders of just all of this stuff that we will never or maybe never know about.
Do I think that? I think yeah. I mean, I think they have to know about stuff that we don't know about to keep us safe. So, but to like to what? So, but like to what degree?
I know, and that's what I'm like. Like maybe Area 51 was a thing, like a real thing, like a legit thing, not that weird video game that you played where you had to shoot the aliens. You remember back in the day, Area
Yeah.
51. But it's not like that. But like, it was a real like extraterrestrial landing site, and they just covered it up.
Do you believe in aliens, George?
I do not. Maybe I don't believe in aliens. I believe that we're not the first like advanced civilization, but I don't believe in aliens. I believe that there was like civilizations that existed before the Egyptians that were like creating incredible monuments and structures and had access to superior technology, not like ours, but I believe that there's like a great
But like
like a
technology good enough to make the pyramids?
right. Yeah, I don't think the pyramids were made by the Egyptians.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like that. I'm not crazy about it. I believe that they're made by. I think they were adopted by the Egyptians. So I think the
Okay.
Egyptians found them and adopted the pyramids and then used them as tombs. Well, think about this.
Didn't they
Like,
like?
okay, the Sphinx. Okay, this sounds crazy, but the Sphinx. They thought even the the sands of the desert had covered its feet, right? All the way up to
Right.
its neck. And if you look at depictions of the Sphinx, it was only like depictions that were way, way old that the Sphinx actually had feet. But even like the Egyptian government thought that that was a myth until, the 50s until they dug it out and they're like, oh yeah, this thing does have feet. Like, look at Easter Island, man.
What's Easter Island?
Easter Island is like, okay, so I remember when it first came like out to Easter Island was a thing. It's this island that has these huge heads on it that are like 15 feet tall, like carved out of stone. It has like 60 of them on there, on the island. And so, and people were like studying them and dating them. And then all of a sudden some dude started digging and they freaking have bodies that are like 20 feet tall. It's like a 35-foot tall stone statue, just 60 of them on an island in the middle of nowhere. And then there's so many things that we don't know, right, that are erased.
Dude, those people had a lot of time on their hands, man. They were hitting rocks with other rocks to make beautiful rocks,
You think so, though?
Man.
There is no, dude, bronze cannot cut bedrock. The saw melts. If you try to cut bedrock with a bronze saw, it melts. Even a 2-man saw. It would take them to cut
melts?
one. Yeah.
How does it melt?
From the friction.
How hot does bronze melt at? What's the melting temperature of bronze?
When I say melt, it doesn't like turn into it like deforms. I'm not saying it melts like it just goes into a puddle of bronze.
Dulls like way too quickly.
Yeah, so they said that that if you, with these gigantic copper 2-handed saws, right? They used sand. So they threw sand in there and they used a little bit of water that they put in it, and they used friction between the saw, the sand, and the water to cut these stones. So they tried it out. They worked on a stone for I think 3 days. And then and they got like millimeters of depth on the stone.
Oh wow.
They said if they were to continue at that pace, it would take them 2 years to cut one stone.
Oh, I thought it was what they did was they took dried out wood and they cut it into wedges, and they banged out holes in the sandstone or the stone or whatever.
Right.
And then they put the dry wood in the hole, and then they poured water on it, and the wood would expand.
Well, the issue with that theory is that the stones are too precise. So the way that they're cut, like they're uniform and they're precise. And so that would fracture the stones, and the stones are all one piece. They're not fractured. So there's a lot. So I believe that there's definitely ancient civilizations. Dude, it is snowing right now, like blizzard snowing. Anyhow,
it's snowing here too. It's crazy.
Dude, it just shocked me. So yeah, I believe in that. I believe the Egyptian government's covering it up, and the reason I believe that, there's some really weird stuff behind this too. They found a sarcophagus in Egypt. Okay, this old sarcophagus, and there's this minister that was a historian. Okay, the minister of whatever Egyptian culture and history, and he would not allow any pictures to be taken of inside the sarcophagus. Right, so they have the sarcophagus. They found it. They dug it out, and they opened it just big enough to put his head in. He put his head in. He popped it out and said, "Oh man, the only thing that's in here is some red goo." Closed it up, and that was it. Nothing's ever been heard about it, and it's 3,500 years old. They said, and no one's talking about it. No one's talking about the goo. No one's talking about anything that was in it. And
nobody talked about the goo. I would want to know what the goo was.
Dude, this guy was fired. They said that it was because it was so airtight and sealed that the body that was in it had turned into goo. But they found sealed sarcophaguses before that were old, and that's not what happens.
Okay, I didn't know that you could get them to seal that well.
Yeah, I mean it was a massive. It was like 30 tons. The sarcophagus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was huge. It wasn't a small thing. I mean it was pretty far down, like 15, 20 feet down, and they had to dig out this huge thing. I mean, who would stick their head in an ancient sarcophagus?
Dude, I would, man. Are you kidding me?
Would you? Dude, I'd be afraid of like subjecting myself to like an ancient disease or something.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
So the prevailing theory out there is that
30 seconds ago I would have.
is that Egyptologists, right? And there's a guy on the Joe Rogan podcast actually that I'll send to you, and he explains all of this. There's a lot of leading scientists that say like the weathering on the Sphinx itself, they said is from the sand. The Egyptologists do in Egypt, but the reality
Okay.
is that that kind of weathering is not the type of weathering that they see from sand. They see it from water. It's water erosion, and Egypt hasn't seen an incredible amount of water to cause that much erosion in like 30,000 years. So,
Okay.
so which could be potential evidence that the Sphinx is could be like 30,000 years old.
Ah.
And so
Well, every single civilization has a flood story.
that's true, and that's
Right.
actually
Not
one
every
of the
single.
prevailing stories for how an ancient civilization got wiped out is a flood.
Really?
Yeah, because okay, so look at the Hopi people. There's these things called the Hopi Mounds. I think it's called the Hopi Mounds. I want to be right about that. Let
Now
me
you're
look.
talking about the like the Native Americans or
The
the Hopi
natives,
Indians or what?
yeah,
The
the
natives.
natives. Um, I'm gonna look it up real quick. The Hopi Mounds, the Hopi
Hopi
Mound
Mound.
builders. Okay, so the Hopi Mound builders, they found a city, a Hopi city that was massive. They said it if it's in it, they built it like a pyramid up a mound. Okay, and they believe that it could have housed up to 30,000 people.
Wow.
That's how big it was. It was huge. So then, so there's two prevailing theories. There's a theory that there was a flood, okay, which is why people started building up. But then there's a theory that, and this is something that's really brilliant actually, that there was a period in Earth's history, like way back in the past, where we experienced a solar storm so severe that it drove people underground, and that's why you get all of the gigantic cave networks in Palestine where people just went underground. There's huge cave networks all over the world, massive cities. The cave people, look them up. Massive cities were built underground because
Wow.
things were dying. And so, there's a scientist, and it's a theory that people were being destroyed, and it like destroyed most of the Earth's population. So they had to dig underground. So they're like, there's a number of periods in human history where we faced extinction. Um,
They all sound like the literal translation of a biblical metaphor,
yeah,
you know? Like the flood, like wasn't the Tower of Babel pre-flood?
yeah. The Tower of Babel was pre-flood.
Yeah, and that sounded like it was pretty technological,
Well, no one really
you
knows how,
know?
and this is the hardest part is no one really knows how to date genealogies. You know what I mean? Like effectively.
Right.
And so we don't know how long. You know, we could follow the genealogies of Abraham, and some of them from Adam, some of them, right? And we can get a rough estimate that is 6,000 years between Adam and Abraham is what they believe, or yeah, no, it's 3,000 years between Adam and Jesus,
Okay.
and so that's where the 6,000 year old Earth comes from, young Earth.
Right.
And so, but the reality is there's actually a gap between between like the creation of Adam and Eve and then the descendants, right? Because it was like a lot later that they had kids when they were kicked out of. So there's a gap there, and nobody knows how long that gap could have been if you were to follow like the biblical narrative. And so John Lennox is a professor at Cambridge. He's a mathematician. He has a very good explanation for these things. It's kind of weird and out there, for the dating of the Earth. He's an old Earth guy. So I would check him out.
You're gonna have a lot of fundamentalists mad at you.
Oh, and you know that's the thing about this, man. Is I just these are things kind of like the flat Earth. They don't change anything, right? I'm still gonna
Right.
wake up
Right.
tomorrow and drink coffee, go to work, you know, come
Pray to God.
home, pray to God. You know, it's not gonna change anything.
Right.
It's just things I like to think about, as a hobby.
It is interesting, man. This is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I wish I had them all pulled up, man. There is I want to plug a YouTube channel that I follow. It's called It's kind of helpful having my phone in this podcast available. Um, let's see. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
What does he
Uh,
talk about?
he basically talks about what I'm talking about now. Oh, here's another thing. Like, so Atlantis, they feel like they have discovered Atlantis. It's this thing that's kind of swept under the rug, but they found it. There's this ancient story by the by uh, a Roman, no, a Greek philosopher, a historian that talks about Atlantis. Right? He has this huge thing about Atlantis, and he talks about the king named Atlas. All right. So we recently
Okay.
discovered, and this is a crazy thing, man. So the burning of the library in Alexandria, they said that we lost by the Islamic Turks. They said we lost 80% of Earth's recorded history
What?
up to that. Yeah.
No way.
So when the Islamic Turks came and took over Alexandria in the Middle East, they burnt down the Great Library, where the Rome was storing they would travel, they'd conquer Persia, they conquer all these places, and they would store all the documents they found there. And the Turks came and wiped it out. And I could be
Dude, could
wrong.
you imagine like being one of the people that did that? Because I heard about that. And there's a couple times when a great sabotaging of history had occurred. And you have to be some kind of horrible, malevolent person to engage in the destruction of history. You have to hate mankind in order to do something like that. That's just
Right.
crazy, man. That's
Well,
just crazy. Sorry, keep going.
no, that's fine. I just think that like they recently discovered more information on a kingdom called the Kingdom of Mauritania, and it's actually in West Africa.
Yeah,
And
Mauritania is in West Africa.
and it's they thought it was like this little nation, right? But they discovered that one of the richest kings ever lived there in the world. They said the king was richer than any Jeff Bezos, richer than anyone that's ever lived. He had so much wealth. And they were extremely prosperous. They were extremely formidable. And the king that founded Mauritania was named King Atlas. And so and they had a city that had 3 moats to it. They were like these gigantic channels of water that they brought there. And so it's like if you look at ruins of the Kingdom of Mauritania, the actual like center of it, you'll see that it looks exactly how it's described. Exactly how it's
Really,
described. Yeah.
Mauritania is pretty big. As I, if I'm remembering correctly, it's actually not like a small
Well, it's
country
most it's
in Africa,
mostly desert. Actually, it's mostly
right?
uninhabitable. But they say that back, when this was written about them, and the Greek time. Oh, that sounds scientific. Back in the Greek time,
Back
um,
in the Greek days, you know, we actually have what is it? We actually are in the Greek days, man. We embodied or adopted a Greek way of thinking.
oh yeah, I mean we're definitely Hellenistic for sure. But Plato is the one that did this actually. That
He did
wrote
this to
that
us.
wrote no, he wrote about Atlantis. But
Oh,
anyhow, they
Plato.
believe they kind of did. You know how they do these predictions of where like the ocean would have been back in the day. They did a prediction on this, just gauging sea levels, and they found saltwater brine in Mauritania. So the ocean would have been all the way up to Mauritania at least. And so because Mauritania is landlocked almost, it's
Right. Well, it
virtually
makes
landlocked.
sense. So here's it. Let me just we can get back to it real quick,
Yeah.
but just to go along with what you're saying, I watched this what is it? Oh man, I forget his name, but there's this he's an evangelist, a Christian evangelist, old school guy actually.
Okay.
Um, it's not a modern guy. He's an old school guy, and his whole gig was that he would basically he'd align certain biblical narratives with scientific truths,
Okay.
and one of them was the flood, and he was like, and he broke down the flood, and he read, he actually had the Bible out, and I mean, this dude is a solid dude. It wasn't like weird,
Yeah.
he wasn't weird
It
doctrine.
wasn't
He
like an
was,
apologist approach, like.
no, it wasn't, and he was full on, a believer in Jesus and stuff like that too. But what he's saying is, so he broke down what the flood could have looked like scientifically.
Right.
And he said, in the way that the Bible describes the way that it flooded, it said it was coming up from the ground, right?
Yeah.
It talked about it. It talked about there being a canopy, like a crust, right?
Does it say that? I thought it said that it
Yeah.
rained.
No, man. It says that the water came up from the ground in the Bible
Whoa.
in Genesis. Look it up
I'm about
right
to
now.
look it
We'll
up.
find
Yeah.
the verse.
No, continue.
Yeah,
Can you
I'll
talk?
continue though. So anyways, and he basically says, he suggests that maybe it happened like this. Maybe the earth had a crust over it, and the water was under the crust, right? And the canopy was the I don't know exactly what he described the canopy to be, but there's the crust and there was water under it, and we were on top of it, right? And there was still like lakes, fresh water, and there was access to water, but it wasn't like it is now. And the idea is that a meteorite came or something, struck the earth, broke the crust, and kind of shattered everything. And then the water came up, and then after a while, it all settled after 40 days and 40 nights, which is could be relative to a really long time,
Yeah.
right? And depending on what part of the earth they were in at the time, I guess it could have been, longer days. I don't know. But anyways, then it settled and it all ended up where it ended up.
You're right. The text says it's really interesting because it's like both. It says, the text says the fountains of the great deep burst apart and the floodgates of heaven broke open.
Yeah, it's like the guy, like almost like guys are shot up into the or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, and does it say anything about the? Yeah, and so anyways, he goes.
And it
in,
says here, this
yeah.
is a crazy thing actually. Um, it says God bade each drop pass through the hell of Gehenna. This is the Tanakh actually. So this is the Jewish Old Testament direct translation. That the God bade each drop to pass through hell before it fell to earth, and it was hot rain, and it scalded the sinners. So that's kind of interesting.
That's crazy, eh?
Yeah.
That could have been. It could be hot, anyways. So I mean, you could look at it like a metaphor. Just you could entertain that. You don't have to accept it, but you can entertain that as an idea, right?
Right.
So you read that. You can read that. You can read that part of the Bible, the flood narrative, and it all of a sudden sounds totally like plausible. It doesn't sound like a magical miracle. It sounds like this is something God could have allowed to happen,
Right.
in the form of a natural. Like it doesn't change the importance of the biblical narrative,
Right.
biblically, but it just makes it look different. And I just thought that was really interesting. And to go along with what you're saying, I think that the earth did flood in an extravagant way.
Right.
And because there's water, there's what is it? Water damage in places where like how has water ever been here before ever?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
The Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was a place that I think he said something happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways,
it's so crazy, man. You think about it. Scientists have looked at Yellowstone and pointed at it and said if Yellowstone was to go off, it would change the entire climate of Earth. Like,
wow.
the levels of greenhouse gases that would be emitted from Yellowstone itself would instantly put us into a global warming ice age scenario. And those that survived would have to go through an incredible amount afterwards. It'd be very difficult. And you may not know this, but there was actually a point in history that scientists have tracked. There's a supervolcano in Siberia called the Siberian Traps. The place is virtually uninhabitable because it's in Siberia and it's mostly like glaciers and tundra. And it actually went off. It exploded, and it's about similar size, maybe a little bit greater than Yellowstone. And what followed was a period, a filtering period for people or organisms called the Great Dying. Look it up. I think it's like 90% of all organic life was destroyed.
And really, wow.
Yeah. And so it's a really interesting thing. You know, so there's a lot of like extinction events that have happened that should have wiped us out, right? I'm gonna look it up, the Great Dying, just so I can give an accurate.
Sure.
It's during the Permian Triassic period, so they say 251 million years ago. And so you see all these like huge eras, right, that have ended by these like catastrophic events. And so that's kind of one of the things that I'm thinking about is like, what is underneath the desert, right? So like if Earth's atmosphere is constantly changing, like at one point it can be proved that the majority of Earth was like temperate and covered in wildlife, and it was warmer, it was much warmer. We've cooled down a lot. And we've gone through like these huge atmospheric changes, and they believe that there was like more oxygen in the air, so that's why plants grew bigger and megafauna, and more.
Wouldn't like more oxygen be bad? Wouldn't plants need more carbon dioxide
or more carbon
greenhouse
gases?
gases?
That's what I meant. Carbon dioxide. Yeah.
Right.
So there's more carbon dioxide, which caused megafauna because it was warmer because of the greenhouse gas.
Okay.
And it's just, you look at all these transitions that the Earth is in, and we're in a huge transition now, right? This climate change thing that people are talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's changed from global warming to climate change, and it was something before that. So now we're finally in agreement here. I agree the climate changes.
Yeah. Well, I think people are afraid, man. They're really afraid, and I'm not, like I said, no way am I a scientist. This is just one dude that has read some stuff, and but people are afraid that humans are going to create a dust ball that will fly through space that once had life on it. I mean, and I don't think that'll happen. I just don't think it'll happen.
Think it'll happen.
It's kind of crazy.
What we're talking about now is like some of the most hardcore stuff,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think to me that like, we're driving diesel trucks and cutting down rainforests, and that's going to cause the extinction of Earth itself, but a gigantic asteroid that collided with Earth and slowed down the Earth rotation, right? That didn't kill everything off. They said it
right.
They believe when that asteroid landed that it caused tsunamis that were like hundreds of feet high. And it just, I think Earth is going to be okay if that extinction happens of mankind, because of we're pretty fragile, man. You know what I mean? We're very fragile.
We are fragile, but we're also incredibly adaptive.
Yeah.
Which is it. But I wanted to touch on the forest real quick because there's a lot of great concern about the rainforest.
Okay.
And us chopping it down. But I learned something recently that I did not know, and it was that the rainforest and those tropical forests are not the largest forests in the world. There is one giant forest that nobody, or I don't want to say nobody, but you wouldn't think about. Like you wouldn't, like, if I grew up thinking that the Amazon rainforest was the biggest forest in the world.
Right. And these are massive. Like I can't even comprehend how large the Amazon is. Or like the Congo in Central Africa. Like it stretches from like South Africa all the way up until, little past the equator. It's like huge.
called it's called the taiga. It's also known as the boreal forest or the snow forest,
Okay.
and the world's largest. It's the world's second largest land biome. In North America, it covers most of inland Canada,
Yeah.
Alaska, and parts of northern continental USA. In Eurasia, it covers most of Sweden, Finland, much of Norway, some of the Scottish Highlands, some lowland coastal areas of Iceland, and much of Russia.
So essentially,
From
like the northern hemisphere where it's cold.
it's the forest that wraps around the entire globe at the front, at the
Okay.
top, and apparently that's considered a forest, a land biome.
Yeah.
And that is actually where most of the planet's oxygen comes from.
Really?
Is that forest? Yeah.
Wow.
Trying to read about it, but anyways, I mean, it's like, and we haven't even tapped into that forest yet, man.
And I think it'd
And
be
it would,
incredibly difficult to do that. Like I
oh,
watched Ice Road
it's
Truckers
people
once,
can't
dude.
people can't even live there, man.
You know, I do not want to see like habitats destroyed, dude. That sucks.
Oh,
And especially for wood, man. I think we're beyond that, and I think that that's where a lot of environmentalists are like concerned. You know, I think we're beyond the need to be cutting down, like clear cutting jungles for wood. I think we're beyond that. There's definitely a more responsible way of harvesting wood. I don't think we should
there's
stop
definitely
harvesting wood, but there's a better way to do it.
right. Yeah, it's good. It's good that we need to be good stewards of the planet, and I think
Yeah.
that is a good moral place to be. You know, you don't want to you wouldn't destroy your house while you live there, you know,
Yeah.
and you clean it up when things get messy, and we should do the same thing.
Sometimes.
And yeah, but it's just hard when there's all these different countries that we're not on the same page as the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Right. There's
Like,
there's an
like
awesome.
America, start, we're starting to clean our act up here in America. The Europe, man, they've been doing it for a while now. I mean, they've got
No,
some of
dude.
the most efficient recycling in the world over there, man.
They have a smaller amount of people. So if we were
Oh,
to
that's
approach,
true.
if we were to approach, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, like it's so we cannot compare America. We can't compare America to mono-ethnic European countries that are
I totally
like,
agree.
that are a percentage of our population. It's like it is madness. Like Canada, dude. I hate the comparison with Canada. Canada has like 60 million people in it. That's like
Okay.
Los Angeles alone has like at least 1/10 of Canada's whole population.
Well, Australia is 20 million, and I feel like LA County has 17 million people in it.
I want to
Maybe.
say that the LA County, like the greater county, has 4 million, and I want to say that the city itself has 1 million people living in the city. Are you looking it up?
It looks like I am. Wow. Hold
It's
on.
4 million, dude. You're right.
I didn't say 4 million. You said 4 million.
Oh, I said 4 million. Oh, I'm right. I'm right.
Dude, this says 2018 Los Angeles County population estimation 10 million.
Dude, I'm looking at inner city populations 4 million in 2017. They're estimating and that's give or take a couple 100,000, but still, I mean, my point's proven. But if you were to look at the demographics of Canada or the demographics of Norway or Sweden, you would see that they're majority white. And like, I'm not saying that is like I'm not saying
It's not a
about
race
white.
thing.
Yeah, it's that we have this incredible thing, which is like cultural mixing. Like we have this huge mix of culture in our nation,
yeah.
that you'll never find anywhere else. We like
Right.
function differently as a society.
Yeah.
So I think that we're doing pretty. I think there are some places that do pretty damn well, right? And then
Oh
there's some
yeah,
places that suck. That's because of states and state powers and how we function.
dude. Recover what I was saying. Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that I think America is truly the greatest country in the world, and I know a lot of people do not feel that way, and that's fine. Let's talk about it in the comments below. But um, all I was saying was I hear all these stories about like those countries running out of things to recycle and needing to get stuff to recycle to keep the plants open from like Russia. So they'll like just bring boatloads of trash down to this. I think it's like it's got to be Sweden or something, or Switzerland or something like that, where they have to like bring boatloads of trash from Russia to keep the plants open to recycle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that sounds really badass. Um, you know, but at the same time, I don't even know if we might be doing that here in America as well.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Already.
Yeah, I mean, California has a fantastic law for recycling. So and I love it. I wish where I live now, because I used to live in California, but I wish where I live now had it. So they pay people for the metal, and the plastic, and the glass. And so they have a pretty hardcore. They have mostly the homeless are collecting cans and metal and glass for money. Where I live now, you have to pay companies to come and you pay for recycling. It's like,
Yeah.
but in California they pay you. And I'm not saying that's a perfect system, but I think that's that kind of works. That'll incentivize it.
Right. Well, hey, we're taking steps to always be improving as well with this stuff. It's funny we went from flat Earth to like, hey, let's protect the Earth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless, I think the point is regardless of flat Earth or round Earth, we need to be good stewards of the Earth. I think that's where we're at.
Right.
And that's pretty good. That's a good progression.
Yeah, it is a good progression.
And there's ancient civilizations somewhere in between.
Dude, there's crazy mysteries, man.
Yeah.
The world is full of so many mysteries. I feel like when like I'm in an airplane flying over things, man, I'm like the infinite number of stories and mystery that I'm just passing over. Like when you fly to Africa, man, when we flew from Holland to Kenya, just think about all the crazy undiscovered mysteries and treasures that we flew over, man. That's what the Earth is full of. All this historical craziness, man.
And we'll never know all the things that we don't know. That's like the craziest thing to me is that we just entered into an incredibly accurate age of modern science that we're still stumbling through. I watched the Challenger launch today for whatever reason. It's the first I woke up and it was like I checked our subscriber feed because that's the first thing I want to do when I wake up. I need better habits. I'm gonna put my phone in the office tonight. And it was in my recommended feed because for whatever reason YouTube feels like I need to watch that. And so it was a video of the scientist, the flight control for the Challenger when the Challenger exploded, and it has the moment that it exploded. Like one of the flight controllers is like, he's like, go ahead, throttle up, and like throttled up, Challenger exploded because he did that, and you could just see him like they're like, oh, they're super, and then I didn't know this, but this is a random side story. But there is actually a military subsection of NASA that is only there to ignite the whole ship if it blows up like that, so that it doesn't like kill civilians. I didn't know that.
To ignite it?
Yeah. So like, so the rockets, right? When there's when it malfunctions, the rockets just go and they blow off to the side, and they have mechanisms in there that will detonate them and destroy them. So and there's like just a couple military guys that are in there that, if something goes wrong and the rocket, the spaceship is freaking going nuts towards the city, they just press a button and it explodes the spaceship and kills everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I learned that
Oh,
today. But anyhow, so you see this thing happen, and then all of a sudden you hear this guy go on and say, "Detonation complete," and it's like, "Oh, what?" And so it's crazy. Um,
dude, wait, hold on. So they blew people up?
I don't think no, they didn't because the crew blew off of the rest of the spaceship, so that separated. And so the crew blew into the
So,
ocean,
and that
and
just
then
happened today?
no, the Challenger, man, that happened in the 80s.
I don't know anything about space
It
history and
was I think it
whatnot.
was the second spaceship to go into space.
Dang, dude,
But
that's
anyhow, so the Challenger exploded, and you look at all of the instruments that were being used to launch that spaceship. They say now, like, a modern cell phone has more technology in it than the instruments used to launch the Challenger.
now that's terrifying. And look at where we're all at. You
Right.
know,
We're looking at
memes. That's
memes
what we
all day.
memes. We
How
use
we
our
could launch
phone.
spaceships, but no. I
Our phone
must.
is more complicated than the spaceships that have sent people to the moon,
Yeah.
but we use it to look at memes and to and to text using just single letters. Where
I
you at?
text.
Look for
Yeah.
you.
I text memes. I look at memes
Snapchat.
and I text memes.
That's what we do, man. That's what we do. But anyways, man, let's close this up. Let's
Yeah.
patch this bad boy up, post her up,
All right.
get
Well,
her dead.
you open, so I'm gonna close. All right.
All right, close it up.
All right. You guys are wonderful people. I hope that you learned a lot from this podcast today. We covered everything from flat Earth to round Earth to saving the Earth, and with a little bit of ancient aliens and catastrophe in between.
Of course.
If you like this podcast, go ahead and give it a like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to us. If you don't subscribe to us, we're going to think that we are failures, and we'll probably never do this again. Have a great day, night. You're wonderful people.
Good
We
night.
love you.
Thanks for watching.